My name is Livy DeLuca. I'm with the Jeannette Area Historical Society. This is Deb and Deb, and they're part of the Truth Seekers. I keep saying it the wrong way. Truth Seekers. They're the ghost finder people. And also You Are Here is part of this, but they're down there manning the cookies and hot cocoa. So they have the fun part. We'll try to refrain from too many questions. Well, it's a small group. while we're actually doing it, and then you could ask questions while we're walking, and then you'll have time at the end. We'll go through all their equipment will be down at the Historical Society. You can see all that. But before we get started on the actual ghost stuff, I'm going to give you a little brief history of Jeannette, in case you're not familiar. It was founded in 1888 by a man named H. Sellers McKee. He was riding through on the train and saw all these gas wells and stuff in the countryside and said, hey, that's cheap fuel. I'm going to move my glass factory here. So in 1888, he moved his glass factory to Jeannette, and he decided, since I'm moving my glass factory here, I believe I'll start a city. And I'm going to name the city after my wife. So he named the city Jeannette after his wife. And eventually everybody caught on to the cheap fuel thing, and there were at least 7 working glass factories here at one time. Along with the people, the houses had to come, hotels, tons of hotels, and early, because there weren't houses yet, 1 million hotels and boarding houses with stores on the bottom, boarding up top, or just boarding houses. And also of interest are the city burned down. Several blocks of Clay Avenue burned down 3 times in a row during 1 month. And also there were at least 3 floods. The flood of 1908 was like a very devastating flood. So now that's the little history there of Jeannette. And we're going to start with City Hall, which is the building behind us. The City Hall was built, yes, I do have that, was built in 1927. And in this it houses the fire department, the jail, all the tax buildings, all that stuff, all the council chambers, everything's in there. Built in 1907, but before, the building that was here before that was called the Hotel Marion. It was one of the grandest hotels in the area. The train station was down here, and it was built, I got distracted by voices. Shiny objects and voices distracted me. Okay. See? There was a hotel located here, and it was built in 1889. It was one of the first hotels, and it started its life at the top of the hill. It wasn't at this location. So in 1889, it was built, and about approximately 10 years later, they decided they wanted to move it down to the main street. So a newspaper article states that the hotel was, water lines were affixed with hoses. The telephone wires and electric were just like left loose to hang. And it's very interesting because it says that not one guest was disturbed during the move. So not inconvenienced. No one was inconvenienced. So it was a site of a hotel and City Hall. So whatever their findings are, we're not sure if they're going to be from a hotel or from City Hall. Deb or Deb?
Deb or Deb. Thank you. All right, we went in. We're with the Truth Seekers. Deb is the founder of the group. Been going on for approximately 20 years. Yeah. Okay. We went into City Hall, and some of the experiences that we had heard about. Oh, thank you. Can you put that here so I can? Yeah, I will go. Some of the things that we had heard about were an employee that works here went down to the tax office, and that's on the first floor in a hallway. And as they were standing there to go in the door, they hear, hey, in their ear, and looked around and nobody's around. That office area has also seen a man being there wearing a dark suit and a fedora hat. Another man was seen wearing a blue plaid shirt. So somebody hanging out in there, and they got some nice clothes, okay? Fire department. We also went down into the fire department because there were reports there in the bunk room. The bunk room, the firemen have had their legs pulled while they were laying in bed and being held down on the bed. Now there's 2 held down on the bed and 1 with his leg pulled. So it's been different firefighters, and basically the same thing happening in the same bed. They've heard doors closing and footsteps being heard in the hallway and stairwells, and nobody else is in the building. There shouldn't be anything there. And they also put a sheet, a blanket, over their bunk room door because they kept seeing shadows passing in front of it. So it kind of freaked them out. We have one firefighter that said, "Nope, can't get me in there," and he will not go in that bunk room. So our findings. Up on the 3rd floor, over here, if you can, yeah. We went up, and that's where we kind of started the EVPs, which is electronic voice phenomenon. And we use a tape recorder for it. We went up, Deb asked who was there, and an ovulus, which happens to be one of our pieces of equipment that you'll see down at the Historical Society, the ovulus said Paul, so it used the name Paul. Then we asked what he wanted to say to the employee when he whispered in her ear, and the response was that they're stuck here. And she said, "Are you not human?" On the audio we got, "I'm dead." When asked, "Why do you make yourself known to men and not us?" "I'm here," is what it said. Bunk room, we put Greg in there and left him there for about an hour and a half. He's our little guinea pig. And we put him in there, and not a whole lot happened in there. So before we left, I said, well, I want to kind of give it a try since we had so many reports from so many different firemen. So I went in, and I said, are you here with me? And the audio came across as yes. I said, it seems like you've been here for a while. What do you want us to know? And the response was dead. They're not real big on full sentences. Footsteps were heard as I laid down on the bed on the audio. There was also, and Greg and I both heard it, very high-pitched noise. It sounded like thousands of cicadas outside the window. So that would have been on that side over here. So, and obviously there weren't thousands of cicadas there. When I finally, after almost an hour, I said, anyone in here, please make a noise or I'll leave. And the response was no. So no, they didn't want to make it, or no, they didn't want me to leave, but I left. So that was about all we had from there. But we had different, I'm not going to say the firemen's names, but we have had different firemen with the same experiences. And it's not their imagination. They're trained to, you know, think outside the box. Like, hey, that could have been this or that, but it wasn't. So, you guys got something you want to add?
Yeah, and we couldn't get into the police department. We're not allowed to get in there. But one of the officers was down in the fire department having something to eat, and he told Greg that he won't go on the 3rd floor of City Hall because it creeps him out completely. Like, he wants nothing. And he's a big guy, like strong guy. He wants no parts of it. So.
Yeah. And when I was laying on that cot in that room, she came in, she opened the door real slow, and the door creaked. It scared the hell out of me.
He jumped so high. He beat out a cricket I killed the other day in the sunroom, you know. I mean, he was just up and out, and he said, "You scared me." Sorry. But that's it for City Hall. You want to take off to the next location? Okay. Here you go, honey.
Okay. We're going to down the alley, and we're going to go to Persicetti's restaurant. Stop 2 on our tour. Okay, this is Persicetti's restaurant, stop number 2 on our tour. It was one of the oldest, besides the Hotel Marion. I think most of them were all built at the same time, like right when the glass factories opened. But this is the actual building that was built in 1889, and it was opened in 1890. And it is the exact same building. If we go through the photographs of it from when it was first opened until now, same building. That's pretty rare. And it's always been rooms upstairs, hotel, bar downstairs. It's always been pretty much the same. And the train station and everything were right there, so it was in very close proximity to the trains. And let's see. Some names that it used to be known by were Central Hotel, Hotel Cammer, Hotel McDonald, and in more recent times it was Ronnie's Lounge and CJ's. So, but always a hotel and rooms upstairs. And there's You waiting on him there?
Are you ready? Okay. Can you hold the flashlight, Greg? So I can see? Okay. So, experiences here on the 3rd floor. Investigator felt that he had been doused in gasoline and set on fire like a log. The rocking chair, which I do believe is in that first window on the 3rd floor, is the rocking chair room, how we refer to it. The investigator was in the room, sitting on the floor right beside the rocking chair, and I can't see him. I'm sorry, I blew ahead of the, okay.
I typed it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed it. In the audio, the male voice said, "Do you need to be here?" And a female voice said, "Oh, leave it be." The investigators and you explaining how he felt like how he felt in the rocking chair room. He said he felt like there was a log and he was on fire. And a female voice said, "Good for you." The investigator said, "We want to help you if we can." And a male voice said, and this is not coming from me, this is the spirit, it said, "Screw you." It's pretty much, we asked if someone's there, and it whispered, "This is my chair." In the mattress room, we asked, there was a guy, which I think is the 2nd window on the 3rd floor. I'm sorry. We asked how long he was there before anybody found him. He had passed away there. And the male voice said, "Days." The investigator said, "How can we help you?" And the male voice told him to leave.
We did have it backed up in our research for the death of an individual in there. And sure enough, it was
Let's see.
quite a few days. So that kind of corresponded. We didn't know that beforehand, but then once we started getting the research back on it.
Okay. Greg here was in the room, the rocking chair room, and he watched the rocking chair pivot right in front of him, like it just turned.
It just swiveled. It didn't rock. It just swiveled, just slightly. Truly did. What they told us their experiences are here. Employees have had cheese shakers thrown at them. The heat comes on and it will not go off. They've had to have the furnace guy out here to mess with it a few times just to get it back to working order. And we have on camera in our findings the rocking chair where Greg was at. We had pictures, and then on video you can see it had moved like 3 inches from where it was when he was up there. Dad, what else we got here? They left the camera there all night.
Yeah.
We
So
also have on camera that's down at the Historical Society, that up on the 3rd floor mattress room, you can see we got the photo of standing inside the room, you're looking towards the hallway, and there's the doorway. And then there's the doorway to the next room across the hall. And right in between, you can see on the previous pictures and those afterwards, everything's crystal clear. On the 1 or 2 that we had pulled for it, you couldn't tell what it was out in the hallway, but there was definitely movement. And everybody else inside that room and the door jamming out was crystal clear. It was only the thing that was out in the hallway. So we have a photo of that down at the Historical Society that you can look at. That's where we'll be going at the very end of this. To get warmed up with some coffee and some cookies and tell some ghost stories if you want, if you know anything. Answer any questions you have. We're good. Also, we have the owner out here. His name is Dan. Is Jim making out?
They're a little busy in the bar right now.
Oh, okay.
So it's gonna be me.
That's all right. We're happy with you.
So they were just talking about the furnace. The furnace thing had happened last year. The furnace thing happened last year whenever I just went upstairs and it seemed like every radiator was just burning hot. By the time we did get the HVAC guy here, it stopped. It was all cooled down. Now, the second time was the most recent time. there's two furnaces. One of the furnace was like fighting the AC, so we're like trying to run the AC on the dining room floor while all the radiators are on in there. So he actually had to dismantle the main board of that furnace to keep that off. For some reason, it just was on though. But
They didn't find any problems with it, did they?
no, the first one he didn't find any problems with at all. Like there was no even evidence that it even happened. Like it was just off. We've recently, I don't know, I feel like October kind of is the I mean, it's not cheesy or anything. It's truly when we seem that we have the most, like, but now just this month we started getting a little more activity when we had one of the servers, she was sitting at the table and then her phone was sitting on the table and it just went plop and it just plopped right off the table and onto the floor. And she was also rolling silverware and she went down to picked up her phone, stood up, and then the top row of silverware went boom, and it just flew right over, and it flew right over on the table. And this is so it's kind of normal. Like the cheese shaker thing, I saw myself, and where she said how it gets thrown. And then that same night, the girl didn't even say anything when it happened, but the same night, one of our servers called me, and she goes, I have to tell you. She goes, I was closing. I was all by myself. I went to turn all the lights off and the switches. And then she goes, and I heard this woman laugh. And she goes, it was like she was like in the room right next to me. She was laughing kind of loudly, and I was like, yeah. And so she called her husband, and she goes, I wouldn't tell him why I was calling him because I didn't want anything to know that I actually heard what happened. She goes, so I talked to him until I went out, and then I told him what happened. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's been interesting for sure. But I thank you for making us one of your stops. I have coupons for everybody for the month of October if you want to stop back. So, and feel free to ask any questions.
Appreciate it, Dan. We appreciate it.
Our next stop is Glass City. It's a stained glass window place. It's across the street. The sidewalk is rough, so be careful. Okay, this is the Glass City. It's stained glass shop now. This is one of the newer buildings. It was built in 1903. It was like one of the final lots to be sold actually in Jeannette. For some reason, don't know why. Built in 1903, this is the original structure. It was built by Mr. Baxter for his dental office. So he had a dental practice here, and there's apartments upstairs as well as other offices. Doctor, dentists, chiropractors, someone just said was up there at some point. It was a People's National Bank for a time. For a very short time, it was Kroger's grocery store also, just for a very short time. And prior to being Glass City, it was the Singer Sewing Machine store, so many people still refer to it as the Singer Building, but businesses on the bottom, offices, and housing up top, as with most of the buildings on Clay Avenue. And here's what they found.
Okay, again, we didn't have a lot of experiences felt here. Other than one, a customer felt something on their neck and could hear whispering, but couldn't make out what the sound was or what they were trying to say. Our findings when we came in appeared to be a little different. On audio, on their EVP is what we use. It's a tape recorder, small recorder that we use during our questioning. So if it's something we can't hear, we've got bad hearing. Our researcher goes over and hears everything and that. So these are some of the things that was caught. On the first floor down here, we asked, did you work or live here? And the answer on the Ovulus was, my home. So obviously they must have lived here. We asked the name, what is your name? And the Ovulus came back and said, Paul. Again, Paul. Paul must have been a very popular name back then because you're looking at a lot of Italian families where Paul is very, very, very much the name. Anthony, Paul, everything. So, another Paul here. The owner confirmed when they purchased the building and they were going through things to get rid of in the basement, they found a box in the basement of car parts. Inside that box was a receipt and it had Paul's name on it. So that kind of freaked her out when we told her. She was like, oh, so there was also the Ovulus said Bible, and we didn't know quite what it meant, but the owner said that down in the basement with the car parts, there were also Bibles down there. So it must have been a very religious, individual that he carried it through to the Ovulus and let us know. He liked to answer with the REM pod. The REM pod is, it's a piece of equipment we utilize, and it picks up electromagnetic pulses that a lot of times you'll get around any type of spirits or entities. And he liked to answer with that. So Debbie asked, can you step closer to the REM pod, the little box sitting over there, and set it off one more time? And what do you expect the response was? It went off one more time. So that was kind of neat. We were looking at each other going, oh yeah. Now both investigators, Deb and I, were joking around. And it was down here also on the first floor. And she said, well, somebody's going to have to watch you, right? Joking around, and we're laughing. And the REM pod made us sound like, ha-ha. And it was like, okay, they have a very good sense of humor. So that's where we were at on the first floor. Up on the second floor. Third floor. Our investigator was climbing the steps, which happen to be in all these buildings very small or very long, skinny, and they're just bad to get up and down, But on the third floor, the investigator was out of breath climbing up, and there was a male voice that asked, what's happening? And a female voice was heard saying, you don't look so good. And the individual would have been Greg. He was going up over the stairs. Now, if you take a look at Greg, he doesn't look like too much of an emotional person, all right? But he actually broke our hearts. He was crying. He actually broke down and cried. And we had it on audio. And he says, why are you making me cry? And a female voice come through and said, I don't know what to say. So it just brought out an emotional thing in Greg. He just tends to draw that to him, okay? Making him cry, setting him on fire at Persicetti's. They got it in for you, dude. That's about all that we had found. I'm going to hand it over to Liv.
Okay, we're going down the street here to You Are Here. Down, follow me, and across. We're assuming his name is the same. We're assuming it's maybe his daughter. So we thought it was kind of interesting that there would be a female dentist in the early 1900s. Didn't think that was a big thing. So this, like most of the buildings in town, apartments were upstairs as well as businesses, and businesses were always downstairs. It was a 5 and 10 store at some point. It was a bakery. Various insurance agencies were upstairs as well as downstairs. And the latest thing it was Glenn Richards Jewelry, if anybody would remember that. And something interesting that we didn't find out until, I won't say. After they did their investigations and told us some stuff, then we investigated things a little further and found out things.
We did. She was in charge of the investigation that night.
Oh, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second there.
Are you
I'm so unprepared, yeah. All right, okay. Let's see, so the experience, the staff and customers hearing footsteps on the second floor here, are being watched from an office area, and items being moved and not found until the next morning on the front desk. Our findings, we had a security camera that caught a picture flying off the wall here, the back door flying open in here, orbs in the office, and then we get audio also. In the office area, a male voice called to me, a female, which is her, a female soldier, a traitor. A male voice said, women serve. Investigator asked, why don't you like women? and a male voice told her, "Get out." Yeah.
Rude.
Right, mean. In the gallery area, we asked who was here with us, and it said child. And we asked, "How old are you?" And the answer was 7. And we asked, "Why don't you move on?" And he said, "Safe here." And when we asked who would throw the painting off the wall, she said, "I did." Asked who is she, and she said, "Veronica." And then she said she was burned. Upstairs, after a session in the gallery, we heard footsteps, and it sounded like a bookcase fell over. Investigators went up, and they found absolutely nothing up there to make the noise. Entering the back 2 rooms, the investigators were rushed. Heard another one by something. There was nothing there, but they felt like something rushed them. And then also we found evidence of a fire. There was burned wood upstairs. And we said how many times? 3 times. So it was quite eventful. And we have pictures over here at the Historic Society with that.
And when we're all finished, you'll be able to take a look at some of the things we got here. And take a look at all the equipment.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
please, when we're finished and we come down to the Historical Society, is one of the places we investigate, go on in, get something hot to drink, get some cookies and munch on. Talk among yourself, anything you had, any questions you got.
And Jen's also here. Come here, Jen. Get you.
They're
Come on
the
out.
owners of the building who actually experienced
Jen and Mary, they experience Veronica all the time.
Yeah, we
No,
call,
she,
we named one of our galleries Veronica
Go ahead, Sue.
we named our small gallery Veronica in honor of our spirit. But she did throw up a painting halfway across the main gallery. Jen and I were texting at the time. Jen was at the shop and I was at home. And she was texting away, and then suddenly she texted, "Oh crap, call me." What on earth happened? And it was a painting, and it wasn't like the hook had failed and the thing just slid down the wall. It was in the middle of the gallery, so
It flew.
but it was not damaged. And I had a little talk with the spirit, and I said, "Look, we do not have fine arts insurance here, so you can't damage things." And she also takes things occasionally.
Scissors.
This was the scissors. This is our favorite scissors that Jeannette can use for anything. And we were doing a project in the room, and we had been using it. We went to put everything away. We could not find this. We scoured the place looking for this. And the next day or so, next time we came in, it was laying on the desk in the front, where anyone would have seen it who wanted
Right.
it. I mean, it wasn't like we looked and it wasn't there. So,
She just kind of moves things when she wants to. And
but we
She
did
doesn't appear to be malevolent.
No, she's not malevolent, and we also found that the times when we notice little things happening are this, like spring and fall, like the change of seasons, are the more likely for us to have some sort of small incident. But she's fine. We get along. As long as there's
You
no
have an understanding.
Right.
if there's art that she doesn't like, there was a particular young individual that she didn't like. Every time we came in, there was a piece of art on the floor. It wasn't damaged,
It would
but
just
it was just there. She just would remove this piece or remove this piece. We would say, "Will you please stop doing that? We can't afford this. You're gonna pay for the insurance." She didn't damage it, but
you never know.
you never know what you're gonna get into or with her, Every once in a while we yell at her like a child, like, "Stop, behave." We had people coming. Oh, the poet, that was the best. We had a poetry reading. And they stopped playing and they said, "I think somebody's upstairs." Do you remember that?
Oh, right.
We're like, "No, nobody's up there." Just ignore it. We're like, "Oh, great." They're gonna find out.
I think, was that everything,
Yep.
guys?
Yep.
We're gonna be moving on to Sobel's Obscure Brewery. All right, they're gonna be having a soft opening in about a week. And then after that, they'll be open for the public. And I think a few days after that. And I got a sneak peek now. We went in. It's gorgeous in there.
It is very
Absolutely
nice.
gorgeous. And so, you guys, I encourage you, if you want to come down, cash in your, couple person chuddies and drop down to a beer.
Well, you better go down there. No beer, but
This corner original location of, it was Kaufman's Brothers clothing store, not related to the Kaufmans from Pittsburgh, not the famous Kaufmans. But it burnt. This is one of the blocks that burned down when I said they had all those devastating fires. This block and the other block, 2 blocks there, they burned down 3 times in like 1 month. They went back and forth across the streets even, one of the fires. It was so bad. So this burnt down, but from when I look at pictures, I think the bottom, this part was still there from the original Kaufman's building. And then the Gillespie brothers decided to buy out the Kaufman brothers, move their store here and make it really big. So this is the Gillespie building from, it was a department store, from 1904? Nope, 1902 until the 1980s. So it was the Gillespie clothing store, and then it was until the 1980s. Then it became a little Clay's Corner, which also was a clothing store, and then it was a little antique shop. And something about this building was, from far as we can tell, and our records show that there were never apartments or anything upstairs. It's always been like the whole thing was retail all the time, no housing or anything like that. And look at the moon, everybody. It's pretty neat.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So that's what that's.
That is so cool. Moon.
Oh, shiny
The
objects.
moon. That's the moon. To the moon, Alice. To the moon, Alice. Okay.
Is that Venus?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's
Okay, so let's see, experiences here. The customer's mother, when Gillespie nearly lost her job when asked who she was talking to by the manager. And she heard a male voice behind her and turned to find nobody.
No one was there, so they were like thinking she was crazy. Starting to slip a little, and they were going to fire her. She insisted. She says no. She says it's not the first time. So they managed to let her keep her job.
Okay. And our findings on the first floor, the investigator asked, how about when this place opens up, you and I, or you go home and have a beer with us? And the response was, all right. We're partying with the ghost here in a couple weeks.
Spirit with the spirits.
Spirit with the spirits. Anything that you got to add?
Not really. We were having some difficulty breathing upstairs. I felt closed in, and there was evidence of, yes,
The
a
fire and charred wood here too, yeah.
Very charred wood over on the South Fifth Street side. I mean, it was really charred in nice and thick. So,
Dave said something about this. I think Dave said he felt something here also, but I can't remember what he told
he
me.
could have you in the basement
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah. I think that's about it for here.
Is this where I went down to the basement?
Yeah, didn't you go down the basement here? Yeah.
Yeah, I was down there for a while, just sitting in the blackness, but I didn't experience anything down there.
Yeah, probably one of the most quietest buildings around.
But we
That's-
needed
which
it
is a
on
good
our
thing.
tour for
Right.
advertisement.
We are ghost free.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gluten,
They-
ghost, everything
Nice.
free.
Come have a spirit with the spirits, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
That's a good,
Yes.
good
Oh, they
attitude
could
there.
really, yeah,
couldn't
Jenny
help
could go
ourselves.
well
Yeah,
with long
yeah,
beans.
absolutely.
No, it's my theory, though I know nothing, that because nobody actually lived here or anything, maybe that's why. Like, seems like they have not enough attachment to a place
Right.
because they didn't live there. That's
True,
just my
right.
theory of nothing.
Well, that could be. I mean, there could be a lot that's just like, responding. I mean, things can, places can be haunted and not.
And not to mention, we
Yeah.
don't take it lightly when somebody says and reports, hey, I hear this, I've seen that. That's including the experiences, because it's not like we can use a phone and call up and say, hey, our group's going to be out there tonight between 10 and 3 or whatever. Do you think you could come out and play with us? It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
So for the amount of time we spent, anywhere between 3 and 5 hours at each of these locations, just in physically, investigating, whenever we did get, we were very lucky, because normally you wouldn't get that. So
We're moving on to
Moving
the
on.
library,
Moving
which
on.
we're going down that way and through another dark alley. Yeah, we try to ask them to keep all their lights on. This is the Jeannette Public Library. This is the newest building on our tour, but it's an old site, obviously. This building was built in the 1960s. It was built for Kroger's grocery store. So that Kroger's used that place up there for storage, had their grocery store, and then they moved a big, regular, giant grocery store. So it was built for Kroger's, and then it, for a brief period of time, was Foodland grocery store before the library took it over in 1980. I have the year wrong, but I have it right now because it's on the wall. Can't miss it. But before it was the library, this land was used for the Jeannette Transfer Company, which was the trolley system in Jeannette. They operated the trolleys, and the trolleys at that time in the early 1900s, they were pulled by horses. So this part of the block here was used as stables to house all those horses that pulled the trolleys. So they weren't there that long because it was a messy thing, and then they got electric, and the trolleys were then pulled by electric because the horses made a terrible mess. But the stables were here, and yeah.
You surprised me last
surprised
week.
her last week. There was in 1908 or 02, I think. I don't have it written down, and I'm bad with the years unless they're written on the wall in front of me. There was a terrible flood. It was an Oakford Park flood, actually, and it took out a bunch of the horses. A bunch of the horses died in the flood. The building was half washed away pretty much. And something interesting about the last tour, she, instead of saying water, said Walter. And we have a super good researcher. She's not here at this tour right now, but she was here before.
Yeah.
And she said, Walter, I remember Walter in my research. Well, the town drunk kind of hung out at the stables sometimes, and he died. He was kicked in the head by a horse. And she was trying to say water, but Walter came out. So I don't know if that was something or it was just kind of interesting.
Whoops.
So,
Because that's me.
that's it. Here you go, dear.
Some of the experiences people reported that brought us here were one of the employees that worked here a while back said that there were books that were flying off the shelf. They couldn't keep on the shelf. They pick it up, they put it back, turn around, walk away, then back off again. And the front door here opening. And it's not just one door. You walk through here and you got your double door. I went in to debunk it, and there was nothing in the way of, if you pull one open, there's an airlock. It wasn't that. But they could hear this door here opening, and we investigated. I couldn't find a reason for doing it. The entering investigator, which was Debbie, walked in and she said, we brought you some stuff to communicate. And one of our machines called the Ovulus, which is down at the Historical Society you'll get to see, said no. It didn't want to communicate with us at all. Then the Ovulus was saying water, disaster, and we had no idea what they meant because, as I said, we couldn't tell what they were going to say, and we hadn't spoken with the Historical Society yet to see what had happened. So that was kind of off the wall there. Staff said they had been flooded. That was after that, but didn't realize there were horses and people that lost their lives. We had no idea. And then during the investigation, there was audio that came up on the electromagnetic voice recorder that said, quiet, like we were in a library. But he kept telling us, quiet. Yeah. We were talking about paying attention to the front double doors since that seemed to be the biggest issue. And a voice was heard over the EVP, yeah, check those front doors. And asked if we were bothering them. The response was, no, she is. We don't know who she was. We really don't. We don't know if, I mean, there was only two other people with us. That was the librarian and head librarian, and I don't know who the other lady was, but that was it. We don't know. But that was what we found out here.
Also, with personal experiences, Greg, we had him walking through the aisles, just taking random pictures, you know, just to see if anything come up. And we heard over the obelisk, which is, you'll see when we get back there, it said cowboy, or it said country.
It's a country.
Country. And when he came over, I said, country? What does country mean? Here, he was over there and he was looking through books. And they were on country western people
It was
and
country singers.
country singers. So that's, you know, it said country.
He
So
must have been watching
I was
over his
leafing through
shoulder.
the book, and as soon as I walked up to the table where they were sitting, the device said country. And it was,
obviously,
that's
yeah,
really
paying
well.
attention, yeah.
You know?
And all these experiences that we had, I don't know if you said at the beginning, like we didn't know anything going into these investigations. They didn't give us any information.
None of
what
us
we-
shared. None of us shared information with each other. They didn't know the history of the building or anything. None of it. So,
And it was it was interesting. We wanted this to be different from just a scary Halloween ghost tour. We wanted to come in, see Jeannette. It's a nice, it's a cold night, but it's a nice night to be out walking together. And we definitely encourage you to come back, utilize the city for different things. And we're just thankful you all came out.
Yeah, absolutely. Right here freezing with us.
We didn't say we're the smartest ones around, okay?
Yeah.
You gotta do
We've
this
got the
one, okay?
Historical Society, which is last on the list, and as I said, please go in, take a look at the equipment. There's a gentleman there, his name is Dave, and he will explain the different pieces of equipment we use. Some of it you've probably seen on TV. The camera makes the stick people if there's somebody around, and just a bunch of things. And it was the equipment that we use. So, and grab a cookie and something out of drink.
Yes, absolutely. Someone have to drink. All right.
we're good.
All right.
This is the last stop on our tour. This is 415 Clay Avenue, Historical Society. This is one of the first lots that was sold for some reason. We don't know why. And so I guess it doesn't even seem like a prime location, but it was like the first lot that was sold on Clay Avenue. And the interesting fact about this is most buildings that were lots that were sold, a person, a business owner bought it and built it for their business. This lot was something interesting because back then it didn't usually happen that much. It was built by like a developer or whatever. He built it and then rented it out or sold it, but he didn't have a business in there. It was the first business that was in here that we can find was a confectionery shop, and then we had what else was in here? Oh, barbershop. It was a barbershop for a number of times. And again, housing upstairs, business was downstairs. We're pretty sure this isn't the original building. We think it's a different building, but we're not 100% sure. And the latest couple of things this was the Federal, a toy store called the Federal, where everybody, very popular in Jeannette a long time ago, and Ponzetti's flower shop.
That's what I remember that.
Ponzetti's.
Now that makes
That, I believe that's the same awning from
Okay,
Ponzetti's
I do
flower
remember
shop.
that. Alrighty. Okay, so some of the experiences here were whisperings and sounds of folding chairs moving. We came in and we asked, is there something here that reminds you of when you were alive? And a female voice said yes. And Greg, I think it was talking about the front desk chair. And a male voice said, Mary, my chair. And we asked, is Mary your aunt? And a female voice said no. We asked, sit or come closer? And the female voice said no. On the recording, there were sounds of chairs moving or folding, and if you go back there, nothing was moving, but you could hear it in the audio. Let's see here. Trying to do some more. Okay, the REM pod lit up right here at the door, correct?
Yes, that's what she said.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we said, did you light that up? And a male voice said yes. And there was a very low whisper of a female voice telling us to leave. And I also believe it was the front desk where they gave us the name of the gentleman that used to sit at the front desk.
I don't know.
His name was
It is
John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because we were talking about the front desk and, you know, and the guy, we said, did you used to sit there? And we had John come over the obelisk. So they said at one point he was a volunteer that used to come in and
Found
that was his chair. Yeah, it was founder? Okay. And
And
that was,
the interesting was Mary from You Are Here was one of the people that joined them on the
Yeah.
what's it called?
On the investigation,
investigation. On the investigation, and the spirit or whatever was heard saying Mary.
Yes,
several
yeah,
times.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
So we don't know if there was another Mary, 'cause common name, or referring directly to that Mary, because Mary and John actually were very good
And
friends
absolutely,
too.
yeah. So it was definitely
interesting.
intelligent. Whatever's here was intelligent because it was responding, which was pretty cool. Yeah. That's it. Yep.
That's it. So
That's it.
come on in. There's little certificates that say you completed your tour. There's little snackies in there, and you can look at all the equipment and see what happens. How they do it.
All right.
Come on in.
Come on in. Go in.
Heat up.